Hi everybody, I'm Justin from Main Man Bassing. In this video, I'm going to talk about what causes bird's nest and backlash in a baitcaster like this. If you're new to the channel, I do product reviews, fishing adventures, and how-to videos that all revolve around bass fishing in the Northeast. If you're into fishing, I'd love to have you as a sub, so hit that subscribe button. Bird's nest and backlash are an incredible amount of frustration, and we all know, if we've casted a baitcaster, we all know the heartbreak that it can cause. But why are they occurring? What's going on? And what it is, essentially, is the spool spinning so fast and unraveling so much line faster than the line can exit the line guide and get out of the frame. That's what it is, right? And how do you counter that? Well, almost all baitcasters, I should hope, have a braking system. And there are different kinds of braking systems. This one happens to be magnetic. Trying to get this in focus. Right, and then so those magnets are going to engage the spool and slow it down. And then there are manual pins. There's pin systems where you can pull the pins out to touch the spool so it'll create friction. And then there's automatic pins where you can dial them in. And those are basically kind of the three main braking systems in baitcasters, right? But what the brakes do is slow the spool down so that it gives the line time to get out. Okay, and what you want to do is you want to dial it in and balance it out so that you can get a good cast while all the line is exiting appropriately. And what you want to do, because you think about it, right? Like someone goes back to take a cast and they rip that lure. That lure is just firing off the rod at an incredibly high velocity. And without brakes, the spool is in free spool, so it's gonna spin that spool so fast. And what the lure, the velocity quickly slows down, right? And it hits wind resistance. It's got gravity pulling it down. But the spool doesn't slow down because there are no brakes if you don't have the brakes on. Right, so the spool is just spinning faster and faster basically at the initial speed that it came off the rod, but the lure slowed down. So it doesn't need the line to come out as fast as the original right at the moment of cast. Okay, and so the lure slowed down. You don't need as much line coming out, but the spool's pumping out line, and so it starts to unravel and unwind and tangle up, and that's where you get your bird's nest. And so you can play with the brakes. One thing you can do is you can play with the brakes. And what you do is you put the most amount of brakes that you can and you cast the lure. And you watch it as it casts. And if the line if it sits tight to the spool, and the tension knob, I like to keep the tension knob fairly loose. I really don't like much tension. It's kind of a situational thing, but most of the time I don't want any tension on the knob. I want that spool spinning free, right? And so you watch the line, and if the line sits down and doesn't come off the spool and unwind, you can lessen the brakes. If you got pins, you can push a pin in, and that takes some of the friction off. If you have automatic pins, you can go like a click or two less, and same thing with magnetic ones, and then cast over again. Watch the line, does it come off? And you keep doing that until the line starts to unravel a little bit, and then you just tighten it up a click or two, right? And then you should be good. The other thing you can do, and it's ironically, the lighter lures cause the most amount of backlash because they're so light that they slow down so quickly. But the spool, if the brakes aren't, and they might not even be strong enough, it might be really fast, but it slows down so quick that it doesn't give the spool enough time. The spool doesn't slow down, right? And so, like you think about a 3/16 ounce lure, and you whip that into the wind, it's not going anywhere fast, right? If the brakes aren't set right. So the wind slops it, pushes it down, doesn't really need all that line, but the spool's still spinning very fast, right? And so it's going to pump out the line, and it'll get unraveled and it'll get tangled. So what you could do is, one is go down, change your rod, get a lighter, slower rod, more parabolic rod. It's going to create more force on the cast from the whip, right? And then go down, if you have 8-pound test, go down to 6-pound test. It's going to be lighter line, it's going to be a thinner diameter, it's going to exit that line guide faster. Or you could just go to heavier lure, right? So you really need to think about the application and the presentations you're going to use. And if you want to throw like this, if you want to throw a 3/16 ounce lure, which is really light on a baitcaster, you're going to need a super low profile, 5-pound test, 6-pound test, right? And you're going to need a parabolic rod that bends and has slow action. So slow action means there's more bend in the rod, loads up slower, to get that whip on the cast. So that's what you can do, right? You play with the brakes, you can get a heavier lure, or you can lighten your setup and go smaller. I also forgot to mention that you can get bird's nest when the lure hits the water if you don't stop the spool with your thumb. All right, so just be careful with that, because I have burnt my thumb before with the friction. If that continues to happen, you probably have to use the tension knob. But it shouldn't be a problem if you do it towards the end, right at the end of the cast before the lure hits the water. All right, so I hope that helped. I hope it gave you good perspective. Hopefully you won't catch as many bird's nests with this information. If you're new to the channel, I'd love to have you subscribe. I hope you catch a really big bass soon. I hope you don't get any more bird's lashes, and I hope you have a healthy, safe 2021 bass fishing season. Thank you.